Ron Swanson was a young and healthy med student. He led a pretty normal life. He had good friends, good grades, and he liked good movies. He was very interested in genetics and had plans to save the world from fatal diseases. He enjoyed playing the piano, which he was really good at, and he loved his dog Lil Sebastian. He had saved enough money to travel to Europe with his friends, which he was really excited about. However, Ron had been feeling a little worried lately. At times, he saw bizarre things that other people couldn't see, like cats in a tank, rainbow unicorns, and mythical creatures. Nevertheless, he still felt like a normal person, and the strange things he saw sometimes didn't affect his daily life or his relationships. So, Ron started wondering if psychotic-like experiences could be present in non-clinical people, like himself and his classmates, or if they were only experienced by diagnosed patients with psychotic disorders. Ron started reading articles about this topic, and he found that several studies had addressed this issue. Many of them considered that psychotic symptoms existed as a continuum, with one end representing a diagnosed psychotic disorder, and the other, the absence of psychotic experiences. Therefore, every person was located at some point in between the two. This model of psychosis emerged as a counterpart to the dichotomous conception that was predominant before, which stated that people could be psychotic or normal, and there was no in-between. Looking further into these articles, he found that there had been different studies conducted in non-clinical populations, which aimed to find out if these symptoms were present in individuals that had not been diagnosed with a psychotic disorder. One of these investigations studied children, and it found that 8.7% of children in between the ages of 7 and 8 presented hallucinations, while in those aged 11 to 12, 21% of them presented said experiences. Another study found that up to 65% of children that were 12 years old or younger interacted with an imaginary friend. Other studies used teenagers as their sample, finding similar results as the ones conducted with children. One of them found that 43% of their sample presented varying kinds of psychotic experiences, while another found that these percentages varied from 27% to 32.7% in their particular population, depending on the type of symptom taken into account. As he kept reading, Ron was surprised to find in one of the articles that there had been a worldwide study regarding the presence of psychotic-like experiences in over 50 countries around the globe. This particular study found that the prevalence of at least one psychotic symptom had a wide range, varying from 0.8% up to 31.4% depending on the country. Ron then proceeded to do more research about psychosis itself and found that it has different dimensions. One of these is the positive dimension, which includes symptoms such as hallucinations, paranoid ideas, thought disorders, and magical thinking. Another dimension is the negative one, which includes flat affect, lack of pleasure in everyday life, lack of ability to begin and sustain planned activities, and difficulty in interpersonal relationships. He found that depression could be positively correlated with the presence of positive and negative symptoms, and in consequence, many studies assess depressive symptoms when studying psychotic experiences. All this reading and research led Ron to start his own study. He started by defining the purpose of the investigation. First and foremost, he wanted to find if psychotic-like experiences were present in students from the medicine, psychology, and nursing majors at his university. More specifically, he wanted to describe the differences found between women and men regarding the presence of these symptoms. He also wanted to find out which of the three different dimensions were more frequent in these students. And finally, he wanted to describe the differences found between each of the three college majors: medicine, psychology, and nursing. He then proceeded to define the sample. He would need medicine, nursing, and psychology students from his faculty. 109 of these students were willing to participate in the study, 84 of which were female, and 25 were male. He then wondered how he would assess the presence of psychotic symptoms in these students. In many of the articles he read, the researchers had used a self-administered scale that evaluated the symptoms corresponding to the positive and negative dimensions of psychosis, as well as depression. This was the Community Assessment for Psychic Experiences, which used a Likert-type scale to measure the frequency with which these symptoms appeared. It provided 4 options to report said frequency: never, sometimes, often, and nearly always. After the participants answered the questionnaire and Ron organized and analyzed the results through SPSS, a statistics analysis software, he found that, first of all, there were no statistically significant differences resulting from comparing any of the 3 dimensions or the total score regarding gender or college major. Ron thought that the absence of significant differences might be due to the fact that the sample was too small, which would also explain why the scores in the different dimensions and the total score didn't have a normal distribution. Likewise, the sample didn't have an equal number of men and women or of students from the 3 different majors, which could have influenced the final results and made them less reliable. By calculating the 75th percentile for the scores of every dimension and the overall score, Ron was able to determine which values would be the cutoff point for each of them, and therefore, which values could be considered high scores. He then counted the number of participants that had obtained scores over the cutoff point and found that in both the positive dimension and the depressive dimension, 29.35% of the students had acquired high scores. In the negative dimension, the percentage was considerably lower, being only 8.2%. In the overall score, the percentage of students with high scores was 24.77%. Ron also wanted to find out more specific information about these results. So, he decided to determine what percentage of participants had responded nearly always to each of the dimensions of psychosis assessed in the questionnaire. His findings show that in the positive dimension, 42.2% of participants answered nearly always in one or more of the questions inquiring about the presence of these symptoms. In the depressive and negative dimensions, these percentages were 16.5% and 19.3% respectively. Overall, 48.56% of the sample responded nearly always to at least one of the items of the questionnaire. Ron's results show that psychotic symptoms are, in fact, present in non-clinical populations, thus confirming the assumption that psychotic-like experiences present themselves as a continuum. This means that a lot of people can have this type of experiences at some point in their lives, and that doesn't mean that they suffer from a psychotic disorder. However, some studies show that the presence of said symptoms is associated to poor health status. It has also been found that they may be a predictor for developing a psychotic disorder in the future. Ron thought that it would be convenient to develop future longitudinal studies in which both health status and evolution of psychotic-like experiences are taken into account. He also thinks that in order to obtain more reliable and precise results, it would be convenient to use a larger sample that is more representative of the population it belongs to.